Hey everybody, welcome back to part two of using the sounds out in the field. So in part one, we kind of talked about locating and blind calling. And we kind of finished that one off with, you had a bull located and you moved in, and we kind of talked about getting on that same plane. Now, typically, once I have a bull located, I like to get in as close as I can. Closer the better, and that's where going slow and really being careful of where you step and quiet really comes into play. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is once I get to that spot that I know I'm close enough, we're going to pick a spot for the shooter first. I always set up the shooter first, and again, we'll do a follow-up video of this out in the mountains so that you guys can kind of see what we look for and what we're talking about. But basically, we want to set the shooter up to where, the caller back behind has a much better chance of controlling, where that elk is coming in. Now, once we have that shooter position established, me as the caller, I'm going to turn around and I'm going to look back and see how far back I can see. And then I'm going to go and I'm going to pick a tree or something, and I'm going to go to that spot, and then I'm going to go another 30, 40 yards past that. Because what we're doing right now is basically we're setting the shooter up kind of in that hold-up spot, that hang-up spot, where that bull is going to stop to where he thinks he should be able to see that elk that is making the sound. So, and I think this is one thing that's critical in our setups is, a lot of people will just get to a spot where the caller wants to go and then just tells the shooter, okay, move on up there and pick a spot. The only problem with that is you as the caller, you don't necessarily know where that shooter is. So if your job as the caller is to pull that bull by the shooter on the upwind side so the bull doesn't catch his scent, how do you know which way you have to move if you don't even know where your shooter is? So set the shooter up, move back, and we're also setting that shooter up in where we think that hang-up spot is going to be. And the reason we go a little bit further is because we're actually trying to pull that bull past our shooter. So again, we will do the same thing, that we talked about in that blind calling. We'll start with, some sounds, and today I'm going to showcase the Rip It 450 from Native, but and then again, we have our trees set up, or our stopping points. And you don't have to have trees at each spot. Maybe one spot is a little opening in the trees or in the bushes, but it's just a mixture of trees and open spots and bushes. And we're going to go ahead and work that bull. But where this one is different than the blind calling is we have a bull established. We know where he's at. We've made contact. We're moving in. And so the chances for him responding to us is a lot greater, which means now we don't have to wait as long in between each one that we go. And we can certainly ramp up, that excitement a lot faster. But remember, we're telling a story. It doesn't matter how much that bull responds, but this is also that tricky thing too, where sometimes these bulls will come trotting up silently to that hang-up spot just to peek, especially if it's a smaller bull. And a lot of times we've had that where we've heard the thump 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 coming up, and then just kind of low and slow like that. And me as a caller, I kind of know then, okay, this bull's really getting interested. He's really kind of getting excited. And so that's when I'm going to kind of, kick up, my excitement. I typically open my mouth more so that, the sound has a lot more volume, or I'll use something like the Game Changer to kind of showcase the sounds and kind of build up that excitement. And also too is, I'll focus a lot more on raking and the glunking and the huffs, grunts, and whines, and really, really paying attention to how that bull is engaging with me and responding with me. Now remember, what we're looking for is that bull to basically get to a certain point to where he either or to where he's giving us those cues that he's either challenging us to a fight, or he's kind of doing that lip ball that's kind of telling the cow to come to him and telling us to stay away. Once we get to the bull on that point, then that's, like I said in the previous video, that's when I'm going to switch gears and really start interacting that bull. And this is where you can really get into, those screaming matches. But the one thing is I don't drop the breeding sequence. I don't go away from it. All I do is I switch to a defensive bull. Okay, I'm still doing my cow sounds. Excuse me, guys. I'm still doing my huffs, grunts, and whines. I'm still doing my glunking. But the only difference is now when I do my huffs, grunts, and whines, I'm going to have that heavier pant, that deeper growl, and my whine is going to have more attitude to it. So everything on that, the heavier huffs, that deeper growl, my bugle has, a little higher pitch to it. So all those are immediately showing that I'm already getting aggressive or agitated. I'm on the defense, and that's where too. He lip balls. I'm going to lip ball. But again, this is where we want to control that to where we kind of force him to bugle, and then we bugle over the top of him with that lip ball or that challenge bugle. Because remember, we want to be on the offense. And I'll tell you what, you do this with a dominant bull, and they lose their mind. They can't take it, especially if they're a dominant bull that has been a breeding age bull, that has been a herd bull for a few years, that, he's used to everybody showing him respect. He's not used to somebody giving him attitude or lip and saying, I don't think so. So they can't take it, and time again have had those to where they just come uncorked, and like I said, it's a freight train coming down the mountain. Now on the flip side too is, prime example, last year when I shot Pitchfork, that was 3 bulls that were bugling. He was kind of the middle bull. I figured the bull up top was the herd bull based on how he was responding and kind of what he was doing. But we got into position, and we had to move to really get on that same plane. But it's funny on this one, as soon as we got on that same plane, I let go my first 3 cow calls, and then I could hear him running through the brush right towards us, and it sounded like somebody driving a VW Bug through the brush. It was just crazy how fast he came in and how much, ground he covered that fast. So that just shows the effectiveness of this, breeding sequence, that, and also shows that there are times that, because we had originally set up on the lower bull and started telling the story and started going through the breeding sequence on that lower bull, and the middle and the upper bull were still very, very vocal, but the lower bull had kind of, shut up. And that kind of immediately told me that, that lower bull was a smaller, younger bull that had, probably gotten his butt kicked a couple of times already. And so that's why we went quiet and repositioned. And this is why, so I didn't talk about this in the last video, but when you locate and you get a response, Most people want to listen to those responses and go, oh, that sounds like the better bull. That's the one we're going after. Okay, but my question is how many of these other bulls that responded are you going to go by and run the risk of blowing out to get to that herd bull? And there's no guarantee that when you get over to that herd bull that he's still going to be vocal or he's still going to be in that area. So typically when we hear multiple responses, we're immediately planning a route that we have options 1, 2, and 3. We're going to move, we're going to work bull number 1. If nothing happens with him, we can work to bull number 2, and we can work to bull number 3. So it's always leaving options open. By just focusing on the one bull, thinking, oh, he sounds the best, we're going after that guy, you've kind of pinholed yourself into one interaction and one opportunity. Whereas the approach we take is planning a route to where we have option 1, 2, and 3. We have multiple options for multiple interactions within that morning. I mean, you've done all this work to locate all these elk. Why not maximize the number of interactions that you can have? And remember, the more interactions that you have, the more call-ins you're going to have, which means the more shot opportunities you have, which ultimately means the more punch tags you're going to have. So why not get as many possibilities or chances as you can? I mean, why pinhole yourself only onto one? So that's the difference in calling in 2 to 3 bulls out of every 10 you encounter versus calling in 8 or 9 bulls out of 10. So that's where this whole approach that we have gets us. Because we have more options, because we've done the things to locate and we know where the elk are, because we've done the homework to know their patterns, to know their areas, to know all that, it just increases the number of opportunities that we have, which then in turn, because of the breeding sequence to where we listen to the bull and we adjust our calling based on responses we're getting back from him, now increases the number of call-ins. Well, because of those increased number of call-ins, now we have an increased number of shot opportunities. Now, one thing about the group that I hunt with is we're not trophy hunters at all. Our big thing with us is enjoying the trip, enjoying the day-to-day of what's going on around us. And you know, a punch tag for us is just a bonus. It's not very often in our group that one of the guys that I hunt with will have a bull within maximum effective shooting range where they feel comfortable to where they will let the bow down and go, nah, I want a bigger one. Because we all understand what it's like hunting on public land. I mean, especially some of these areas that are heavily pressured. Some people may only have one shot opportunity within a whole season. And now they're like, no, I want a bigger one. But then, you know, a lot of times these are the same people that are on social media hollering about tag soup. So now don't get me wrong, we like interacting with big bulls just like anybody else. And in fact, I've called in a lot of record book bulls for people that I have hunted with over the years. So it's like I said, it's more about that interaction. And the more interactions that you have and the more time that you have the ability to watch those elk and observe their mannerisms, and especially, like I said, if they're in a place that you can hear their vocalizations and watch their body language, the information that you're gathering from that is just huge. Now, okay, we're engaged with this bull, we're working him, and he only comes partway up. He doesn't come quite to where my shooter is or what we thought the hang-up spot. A lot of times you can tell he's not going to come any farther because that bull will start pacing back and forth at that distance. So immediately that's telling me something's going on. He doesn't want to come any closer Why? And you immediately need to start figuring out why that is. Is he hung up because there's something right there that he doesn't want to cross that we didn't see? Or is it that he has cows and he's reached his maximum distance from his cows? He's not going to go any farther than that. In this case, in this instance, when you hear that, we will go silent. And then I'll move up to the shooter, and then, the shooter will move up to kind of get eyes on, but he'll only move up far enough that we can still see each other. And then we start with hand signals or this or that, thumbs up or, go ahead. So, and then we re-engage the bull and start going again. Now, the one thing is when I'm far back and I can't see the shooter, we have basically a communication. If I'm back there as the caller and I hear the shooter, just give me 3 turkey yelps. That tells me that I need to move up to my shooter because we need to reposition. He saw something that we need to reposition on. We need to get into a better position or a better setup. Now that's the thing with choosing setups. I mean, you're guessing. You're not gonna nail it and choose this perfect setup all the time. So there are times that you have to reposition, and also because of these different factors where maybe there's something that bull doesn't want to cross. Maybe it's a huge blowdown area. Maybe it's a thick wall of brush. Something that was just out of sight between us and the bull when we set up first that we couldn't see. But we need to establish those, move, get set up again, and then interact and go right back into that breeding sequence. It's pretty natural. I mean, elk will move around, and same thing with this breeding sequence. It's not like once the breeding sequence starts that they're locked into this little 20 by 20 area, and that's where they're going to stay until the bull breeds the cow. They're going to move. Now we'll do this throughout the morning until either one, the bull comes in and we've had a shot opportunity, or 2, we know the elk have gone to bed. And you can tell they've gone to bed. I mean, you start getting this feeling about mid-morning time. All the activity kind of subsides. You're not hearing any more bugles, and they're bedded down. Now, that's where we will gain elevation, because we know where they're bedded down. We'll gain elevation and get 250, 300 yards away. The reason we're higher in elevation is because at that time of day thermals are blowing up. When the elk first go to bed, we know not much is going to happen. I mean, yeah, we could go into the bedding area and force things to happen, but the only problem with that is you go into those bedding areas, you bump those bulls out. The chance of them ever coming back are slim. We don't go into bedding areas unless it's towards the tail end of the season and we've really, really got to push the envelope. That really hasn't happened in a very long time. So we just hunt the perimeters. So we'll gain that elevation. We get the hammocks out, we get the food out, we get the water out, we go ahead and take a nap. I mean, the elk are sleeping, they're working on the contents of their stomach. Because I know it's going to take about 3.5, 4 hours for them to empty those contents, and then they're going to be back up on their feet. So once I know they've gone to bed, I know that we have, 3.5 hours. So that's the time, like I said, to eat, to drink some water, refill water if you need to, pull the hammocks out, take a nap, and rest. And then what we're going to do at that midday time, and I usually start this about that 3-hour mark. So meaning from the last interaction from when we stopped 3 hours later, then all I'm going to do just let off 2 or 3 soft cow calls. I'm going to wait 5 minutes and then I'm going to do it again. Wait 5 minutes, do it again. Now what's going to happen is you're going to have 1 or 2 things during the midday with this. Is you're either going to have some random elk from the herd that got up on their feet just come over quietly to check you out, and they're going to walk all the way to you. So you're going to have to listen for snaps and this and that. Now the one critical thing with this is even before I start that midday cow calling is one of my hunting partners is they've got an arrow nock. They're the shooter that we're focusing on, and they're ready. Because of those elk coming in silently, you have to be ready. And the thing is you really don't know which way they're going to come in from. That's why you really have to be listening. We're spread out at this point. We're not right on top of each other, because when you're right on top of each other, you have a tendency to want to talk and communicate. If you're spread out, you're actually listening to what's going on around you a lot more. Now, the other thing that's going to happen is that bull that bedded down, once he finally cracks up, he's just going to give a little bugle like that. And what he's doing is he's acknowledging that he heard you, and he's also inviting you to basically come to him. He's just saying, hey, I'm right here. I've acknowledged you, I've heard you, I'm right here. And then at that point, you can go ahead, get the wind right, move in and set up and start doing a breeding sequence and start working that bull. Now, if you're up there and nothing happens, no elk comes in, you don't hear a bull bugle, we'll normally do those cow sounds, for a good hour, hour and a half. If nothing's come in or we haven't heard a bugle, then we basically just go back to silent. Then it's nap time again. Because now we're waiting for that evening time when those elk get up out of their beds and start heading to their feeding area, that night evening travel path. We'll get all the gear, we'll get it in our packs, we'll kind of be ready, because what we're doing is we're basically, because that evening hunt is fast and furious. A lot of times it's that last 40 minutes to an hour of light. So once we hear the bull crack off, that we know, okay, they're up on their feet, they're moving, then we're basically really checking the wind, and we're covering a lot of ground quickly to get into position as fast as we can, as quietly as we can, so then we can start breaking into our call setups and our call scenarios so that we have the maximum amount of time to work that. And sometimes it happens at night where that bull does not actually come in until it gets too dark. At that point, you need to shut it off. You need to stop calling. And what you can do is you can gather up and start moving away. And you can kind of do some soft bugling or soft cow calling as you're moving away to make it appear like this group is now on the move. They're heading out to, their feeding area. They're getting ready. So this is, basically what we do. And like I said, this doesn't matter if it's day one of the season or the last day of the season. Both these approaches, the blind calling and actually setting up, is exactly our same approach every single day. Same thing with locating. Now, like I said, we are going to do some follow-up videos to this out in the field so that you can really see, you can see me work in this breeding sequence and how I move around and how I incorporate these things and what I'm doing, and also, how we view our setups. So, all right, so this is part 2. This is actually once you have a bull located, you set up, you start working him. So the next few videos coming up, hopefully, are going to be out in the woods so that I can show you, a lot of these setups and a lot of these sounds, but also let you hear these sounds from a distance so that you know what they sound like right next to you and what they're sounding like out at a distance as well. We're also going to do some follow-ups to the e-scouting tutorial line that we're giving you guys. So we'll actually show you things that we look for out in the field. So anyways, guys, there is part 2 of using the sounds out in the field. Hope you guys are enjoying the content. Hope you're enjoying the information. If you do have any questions after you've gone through this, be sure to put the questions in the comments down below, and I'll be sure to answer them. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in. As always, keep calling, keep practicing. Most importantly, have fun, and we'll see you guys on the next video.